Well, actually, consumer debt did rise sharply in the early part of this millennium, but by now it's not very high relative to GDP. The problems with the economy are different. The problem is that during the what's called the neoliberal period, roughly the past generation, productivity has increased. Not quite as fast as before, but it has increased. On the other hand, it hasn't reached the population. Mm-hmm. For the majority of the population, it's been a period of relative stagnation or decline. So real male wages today are about at the level of the 1960s, even though productivity has gotten much greater. Mm-hmm. Wealth has been produced, but it's gone into very few pockets. The last decade, I don't remember the exact figures, but I think about 95% of the wealth produced, something like that, went to maybe 1% of the population. And the 1% that people talk about is misleading, because if you take a look at that 1%, it's heavily skewed towards a tenth of 1% at the very top. Right. So what's happened is an extreme maldistribution of wealth, stagnation, relative stagnation for much of the population, and limited opportunities for work. I mean, there's now, a lot of some praise for the fact that the unemployment rate has gone down, which is good but misleading, because one of the reasons it's going down is that people have just dropped out of the workforce.
Given up, yeah.
If you take a look at the proportion of the working population that has good full-time employment, still way below what it should be. I mean, this, the financial excesses of the last roughly, actually it goes back 20 or 30 years since deregulation started, but particularly the last decade have lost trillions of dollars of output. Now, those are the problems of the economy. You can see there's much discussion now about the minimum wage, but some things are overlooked. If you go through the rapid growth periods, 1950s and 60s, kind of a sometimes called golden age of the economy, the minimum wage tracked productivity, which it should. As productivity increases, the minimum wage increased. When you get to about the mid-70s, they start to separate. Productivity goes up, minimum wage flattens, which means it goes down relatively.
Right.
If the minimum wage had continued at the rate of the 50s and the 60s, it would now probably be about $20 an hour or something like that. And that's and that of course affects everything else. As minimum wages go down, so do others.
Right.
And we have a period of, if you take a look at the economy today, you can see really deep failures. I mean, there's a huge amount of work that has to be done. I mean, just drive around the city. The infrastructure's a wreck. The schools are underfunded. The health system is an international scandal, way too expensive for what's achieved. There's a tremendous amount of work to be done. Lots of people want to do the work. There's plenty of resources, and it's not happening. The system is so dysfunctional that massive capital resources, great willingness to work, vast amounts of work to be done, can't be put together. That's a serious, I mean, we can think of ways out of that, but the fact that it's happening is a major problem. Consumer debt, in contrast, is not a major problem.
Right. Well, that actually has probably gone down more recently anyway.
It's now within reasonable limits. It did increase briefly during the housing bubble, basically.